Welcome, everyone. I'm Ming Wu. I'm the head of engineering for Rovo Dev from Atlassian. Super excited to be here with you all. Today, I'm going to share some interesting findings from Atlassian's recent State of Developer Experience Report 2025. So you may think, measuring developer experience is pretty common. We have done that, right? There's a lot of established metrics in the industry. And your companies, I'm sure, every company has built certain dashboard to bring the visibility to those metrics. And most of those metrics are measuring developer productivity as an approximation to developer experience. But are we actually measuring the right thing? What if we're measuring the wrong thing? The reason we say that is we all have seen the cases where all the metrics are pointing to a very rosy picture. However, we know our teams are suffering. They're burning out. So if this is not the right way to measure, then what would be the right way to measure? The intuitive thinking is to ask your developers, right? They will tell you. So at the beginning of the survey, we did start asking the developers, how do you actually feel to be a developer today? Not how fast, not how productive they are, but how do they feel to be a developer today? So the reason being, over past 12 months, so many things have changed. We've had rapid development for AI. Platform engineering has taken off. All these changes, we really want to understand how developers are taking in those changes. How does those changes actually change their day-to-day? And also, how do the developers and their leaders think about the productivity? So we start asking this simple question. How do you feel like to be a developer today? Just a second. Obviously, we're dealing with a developer crowd. So when you ask a simple question, you may get all kinds of different answers. So I'll show you some examples. How does it feel to be a developer today? We got this. I feel hungry. They cancel Friday night pizzas. Well, not exactly what we're looking for, but good to know. Second one is my favorite. I don't know, ask ChatGPT. Clearly, AI has a lot of impact on our developers today. It depends what you mean by developer. This is valid, philosophical. With AI tools, everyone now can develop code. What do you mean, really, by developer? So clearly, with this question, we're not getting what we want. We thought about this, and for the second annual State of the Dev Experience survey, we sent out the survey to focus on 3 questions. 1, how has developer experience evolved over the past 12 months? Second one, what's the impact of AI on developer daily life? Third one, how does developers and their leaders think about productivity? So we use 3 questions to anchor the developer experience. To get a well-rounded answer, we actually sent out the survey to 3,500 developers and their leaders globally. So we have some really good insights from here. At the end of the presentation, I included a QR code. You can scan and download the full report if you want to know more details. But in this rest of the session, we're going to touch on some highlighted findings. So before we jump into the report, maybe one thing I really want to touch on is why developer experience is so important. Let's be honest, all the software companies, they have one common goal. They want to deliver high-quality software fast. Simple as that. But let's break it down a bit. What do you mean by quality? Quality can mean different things. Usually, it means your software has to be resilient, compliant, and maybe performant. But if we look at the different angle on this one, which this angle is not usually mentioned, but this is what really we want for. The quality means you deliver the right value to your customer. You deliver what your customer wants to the customer. So that is the quality. Second one, let's look at what's a fast. Right, fast, it doesn't necessarily mean you have 10 production drops per day. That's not a fast. Fast really means you can actually deliver at the right speed without the constraint of unnecessary processes and frameworks. Being able to deliver fast gives you competitive advantage. It means you can deliver the customer values at the right speed. You're ahead of the competition. It means you can comply with your regulators ahead of time. So they want to deliver the value fast. And it's a simple statement, easier said than done. So let's come back now to the question, why developer experience is important? It's because developer experience is a key ingredient to developer productivity. Developer experience is about removing the friction points developers face when they use tools, frameworks, and processes, and removing friction points for developers, leading to happier developers who will deliver high-quality software faster. So that's why it's important. Remember that point, because removing the friction points is one thing we found really insightful. That's how we think there's a huge opportunities in terms of leveraging the AI tools for improving developer experience. Okay, so now let's look at the numbers. So let's look at the AI and the developer experience first. We all know most developers probably already adopted AI tools. You know, over the past 12 months, a lot of things have changed. Vibe coding 12 months ago probably means you put down your favorite song and doing the writing code. And now it means a completely different thing. So we observed most of the developers have adopted coding assistants. Stack Overflow survey from 2024 has shown 82% of the developers are already using generative AI for writing code. It's not surprising. They got a lot from the coding assistant. In fact, coding assistant is probably one of the fastest adopted tools, developer technology at all time. Really not surprising. But remember what we said, developer experience is about removing friction points. Coding is not really a point of friction. If you ask any developers, do they want to really fully automate coding, they don't have to do code anymore? I doubt anyone will say yes. So coding assistant can enhance developer experience, but without actually improving it. This is a bit counterintuitive, but if you think about it, our survey shows developers only spend 16% of the time on coding. It is not surprising, right? If you're a developer, you know most of the time during the SDLC, you have to start from ideation, writing specs, writing docs, aligning with everyone, talking to PMs, and do planning, and then you get to coding. But once you get to coding, the most interesting part, you have to do testing, you have to do the review, then you have to do deployment, and you have to monitor and repeat this process. So only 16% of the time they really spend on the coding. So if you look at the entire software development life cycle, 84% time were spent outside coding. This is a huge opportunity here for AI tools to help. So with our survey, we really want to understand how developers are using AI to actually remove the friction points to address the pain points in their development life. Then we got a list. So we started from the bottom. Outside coding, developers are using the AI tools for automating some of the boring tasks. And this is not surprising. Even before AI tools, developers are trying to automate everything by writing scripts. So automation is definitely a first thing. They use the AI tools to help. So we look at Atlassian has 60K developers. So we look at some internal examples, how we use AI tools to automate our life. And this is a good example. This is how we actually use AI tools to deal with the removal of the feature flags. Feature flags are probably one of the common tech debt every company has. They were used to release certain feature. They got left behind because in case something happened, and then nobody goes back to clean them. So they start stacking on top of each other and become tech debt. And this is the single boring task nobody really want to do. So in Atlassian, we create a Rovo agent to handle cleaning up the feature flags. And then we leverage the automation platform in Atlassian and really automating the feature flag cleanup as a workflow. So this really helps the developers to remove the kind of tasks, repetitive tasks they really do not like. But more importantly, this is only not just the handling the boring tasks. It is actually freeing the developers to focus on more valuable and more innovative tasks they really like. So number 3 on the list is documentation. Not surprising. AI has already done really great job on documentation. So the third case we found on the list is folks are using the AI tools for documentation. One example from Atlassian is the pipelines deployment summarizer. Who here really want to write the release note? Nobody really, right? This is some tasks that nobody wish they would need to do. So in Atlassian, we have a pipeline agent that summarizes the deployment once the deployment is going out. So this is not only automate the task, it also helps enforcing the standard. It helps standardize the process so that we won't miss. In case manually done and someone will miss this step, you have to push them to do, but this really helps not only handling the pain points, but also pushing for the standardization. Number 2 on the list is testing. Not surprising. Developers and testing love-hate relationship all the time. We all know testing is important, but it's kind of repetitive sometimes to write tests and improve the test coverage. So what we do in the Atlassian, we developed a test writing agent, and it helps to write the unit test and then improve your repo unit test coverage. And combining with the automation is a very powerful tool. It goes detect your test coverage and automatically generate unit test. Okay, now let's be honest. This process has to have human review because some of the tests are easier, some of the tests are harder. So developers have to look at the PR sometimes to decide whether this test is correct. And we have to actually run to make sure it builds. However, with this automated process for test generation, at least it's a good start. It does the heavy lifting. Now you can focus on maybe make the minor changes. And it helps a lot to speed up the increasing the unit test coverage. Okay, so now we're on to the first one. So first one, searching for information. This shouldn't be any surprise to anyone. Knowledge discovery is super important, especially as your project running longer, more people are involved in the process, and more contexts are generated, your code base gets bigger. it will become harder and harder to search for the information you want. And on average, I believe everyone's probably spend a couple hours a week at least to search for the right information you want, gather the context for your project before you even write the code. So this is really an example to developers are using AI to really help. So Atlassian, how we do it? We do have a Rovo search in-house, and this is GA product. So if you're using Atlassian product, you should have seen this as well. Rovo search helps you to effectively retrieve the relevant information from your document content base. It's not just for Jira and Confluence. It provides a 3P connector, so you can actually search through 3P content like SharePoint. Okay, so now we're seeing it's fantastic to see developers already using AI tools to address the pain point outside coding. There are a bunch of tasks they have find value. And now we want to know, with all this, how much time really does it save them? Right? It's nice to use those tools, but does it really help? Okay, so 38% of the developers experienced the productivity gains in last year's report. If you take a guess this year, what would be the number? In 2025, 99% of developers claim they are saving at least 4 hours per week using the AI tools. This number, when it just came out, it's a bit controversial. A lot of people are skeptical about this number. Really? Does 99% of people already see the gains? Because we know, a lot of people using coding assistant, but not the 99%, right? So 99% people actually claim AI helped them saving time. So let's look at this. Let's dig into the 99% a bit. Actually, 46% of people claim it's saving them 11 to 20 hours per week. Right? So this is really raising eyebrows. Is this really that much? So when we actually look at the data, we found out if you're actually using AI tools to address a lot of friction points along the software development lifecycle, you will see actually efficiency got improved. Like we just said, developers are using AI to search for content, knowledge discovery. They use it for automating to help generate tests, improve the test coverage. They use it for documentation, and they use it to automate their tasks. All this together, they're claiming every week, close to 50% of developers are saving 11 to 20 hours a week. This is huge. This is also really promising data points to show us that, if you think about along the entire software development lifecycle, there's a huge opportunity there for us to improve efficiency, really use AI to improve developer experience. So now, we look at this number. You should ask you a question, especially the leaders should ask the question. Okay, now we're saving time, but what are developers using this time for? Are they using the time to watch YouTube, or are they playing game with this time? This is a valid question. So we also asked the developers. They are putting the time to the good uses. So they are using the extra time to improve code quality. They're using that to developing new features, pleasing the PMs. And they're using it to improve culture. That's great, good for team bonding. And they also use it for generating more documentation. It is great. It's fantastic to see. And we have the robots are doing things. And it is a very good future when we look at that. And as more importantly, developers are using the time responsibly. It's not like they're using the time just for doing something else. So, we can save time, but productivity may not improve. Okay, so now, next question is, we now proved developers are using AI to save time. But are they more productive? It seems like a counterintuitive question, right? They're just using they already use the AI tools to improve their productivity and to save time. But are they really more productive? To get some insight, we actually asked them, each week, how much time do they actually waste in inefficiency? The answer is pretty shocking. In 2025, 50% of the developers claim they lost 10 hours of their week due to inefficiency. And 90% of developers saying they're losing 6+ hours of the week due to inefficiency. This is big, this is huge. We have a huge gap here. It's almost like one full day of the week they're wasted in inefficiency. So I'm not going to say too much about the picture, but it's an analogy on you save time on one side, but you're losing time on the other. And why is that? When you think about this, why there is this disconnection? We're using AI tools, but on the other side, inefficiency actually increased. So our theory hasn't changed from the beginning. Remember, when we were talking about developer experience is about removing friction points. We have to understand the friction points in order to removing them properly. So without a good understanding of the friction points, we won't be able to address the right pain points, or we won't be able to address them in the proper way. How do we address them? We follow the same methodology for any experimentation. First, we have to understand the friction points. We send out survey, we talk to developers, we gather their opinions, then we identify. Second, we need to create the measures, putting the right measure in place. Then you can find out whether you can actually improve or not. Then you take into the action, really do the improvement. Next, you gather the feedback again and ask developers and really measure and looking at the metrics, then iterate the whole process. So it's the same as any scientific experiment process. You discover the problem, you build the metrics, and you execute, and then you go back, iterate the whole process. So now we're starting from the first point, right? The whole process starts from the first point, understanding the friction. Then we actually thought, we're asking the developers, do they think their leaders actually understand the friction point? Surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, 63% of developers saying their leaders don't understand their challenges. There's a big disconnection here. If we don't understand the friction points, how do we know what to address? How do we make sure we are addressing the right friction points? Leaders really need to understand and talk to developers to understand their challenge and really the friction points. And developers should also raise their concerns to the leaders. So I'll give you an example for why this framework works. And we have validated with an example internally. So in Atlassian, with 6,000 developers, the code review cycle is really a big problem. We notice people are complaining about, review cycle is too long and it's blocking the deployment, all that. So one way to push for that would be ask everyone, ask developers, you should do code reviews faster. You should pick up the code reviews as long as it comes up, you know. However, when we analyzed the problem, it's actually not really about they're slow on picking up the code reviewers. It's really about the developers have to spend time to understand the PR, understand the code base, to point out some of the basic errors and the basic round of the review comments. So our approach here, we used the Rovo Dev code reviewer. We enabled that for entire Atlassian. So every PR, when it's submitted, the code reviewer will be triggered, and it will do the first round of reviewing, and will generate the PR summary. And also, it will generate first round of the comments. And the comments will have explanation why it's wrong, and categorized to different type of comment categories. So with all that, you know, we found out, let me show you the number. So actually, this is a little bit of live motion here. So for a little bit more details on the Rovo Dev code reviewer, so it does the automatic code reviewing. It also suggests a fix for some of the simple minor comments. You can directly apply the suggestion. And there's also a nice thing is like it looks at the overall project, if you're using Jira. So it looks at the overall acceptance criteria for this requirement and checks your PR and give you comments if it actually doesn't fit the acceptance criteria. So with all this enabled, what do we see? With this enabled, after 6 months, we see a 45% of the PR cycle time reduction. This is real data. We did a lot of validation, just making sure the data was correct. But we did see really the improvement. The reason it's not hard to understand. The code review agent does the heavy lifting. It helps you to summarize the PR. It gives the first round of the code review and point out the common errors or common fix. And then that saves a lot of trouble. For a human reviewer, when they come in, they can look at that, just validate, and they can quickly grasp what the PR is about. So we see an impressive improvement on the PR cycle time, 45%. So this is actually a good example to validate. The key here is to understand the friction point, not just to see the symptom, but really understand it, analyze it, and find the right approach to it. Okay, so now I'm actually recapped. So here's the QR code if you want to scan and to download the full report you can do. And just to recap, from the report, what we see. We're seeing AI is having a positive impact. It saves 4 to 20 hours per week. It's amazing. It's not surprising with the rapid AI development. I'm sure we'll save more probably in the upcoming years. But significant friction still remains. People are losing 6 to 15 hours per week to inefficiencies. Those inefficiencies existing in the entire software development lifecycle. They're everywhere else outside coding. This is a huge opportunity for us to look into how AI tools can actually help improve the developer experience. So pick the right tools for the job. AI has a positive impact. Definitely there's a growing empathy gap there. So finding the right tools for the job, really trying to look at the application, understand, analyze your use cases, then you will find the right AI tools for doing the right thing. I think that's the end of the presentation. So feel free to follow up with me. I don't think we can take questions here, but I will be outside. So if you have any questions you want to chat about, I'll be outside. And also come to our booth. I think we have a booth in the Venetian Expo. So if you want to come by, there's more details on how within the Atlassian we deal with we use AI tools to help improve the developer experience. Thank Thanks.